Nothing like a Friday, Andy, to start off with some technical difficulties and some challenges. Always a fun way in the week. Thank God it is Friday. But Andy, there are those where were you then type of with all the technical glitches, Andy. This is like take three, I think, for us to try to record this podcast today. Thankfully, it happens early in the podcast, so we don't have to redo all that stuff. That's always the worst. But Andy, what I tried to say on the other takes is I tried to start real good. Was there are those "Where are you now" moments,
Yeah.
like 9/11 obviously comes to mind, and like the Challenger, space shuttle explosion for something for me. That's always something that happens with me. But another one is plays significance to what happened yesterday was the OJ Simpson trial, specifically the white Bronco
Yeah.
uh, escape or like I guess car chase, a police chase in 1994, when OJ Simpson, for lack of a better word, he was a beloved figure in sports. He had been in a movie and media career. I loved him in the Naked Gun movies. Accused of a brutal murder, somehow, some way, got off of that. Was shown innocent, or proven innocent by a jury. That kicked off a series of other things, and OJ was never the same, and we got questions out of it, Andy. So, how did you feel about the OJ Simpson, the murder trial? He passed away yesterday.
Yeah.
Uh, the last 20, 30 years of his life were pretty miserable. So,
Yeah. I mean, probably deservedly so, right? I think, OJ still believes that most of America thinks he was innocent. I don't think that's true. I think most of America thinks he was guilty. I think he was guilty. I mean, I think the guy got away with murder, and it's hard to I have a hard time feeling bad for him. He had a great life. Things were very good, and whatever exactly happened, like the whole thing made no sense. I had to actually go back and check my memories, Dave, because I thought I recalled actually watching the start of the low speed chase at our
I,
former alma mater at George Mason University, and then I was like, no, it happened in June. So I don't recall my exact where was I moment in that one. I just remember watching it. I remember watching it go down. It was just surreal because like nothing was happening. Right? We were watching a truck moving 50 miles an hour, and then it was just a bizarre thing. And then the whole trial that followed, and Cato Kalin, right? And the whole
oh,
lunacy of the whole thing. It was just a surreal thing. And then when he was acquitted, it was a kind of bizarre moment because like no, like I don't think people really expected that was going to happen. But he had the superstar lawyers, and I mean, I guess it worked out for him. But I'm a little, having a hard time really feeling anything for the guy in his passing because I think he was a murderer.
yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, I distinctly remember. I mean, because my grandpa, it was in '94. It was during the NBA. Like, I think it was the finals, or it was
Yeah.
like and so they had interrupted the finals, and like my grandparents had come down to visit us, and I remember distinctly watching and I mean inappropriately cheering, for this car chase, and now I look at it, um, as a part of, you look at Anchorman 2 where they talk about how Ron Burgundy comes up with how 24-hour news. I mean, this is where really those channels, especially CNN, like came into prominence in a lot of ways. While it was around in the '80s and it started, that type of thing where you could provide that 24-hour coverage, and maybe the bad result was the sensationalism of a murder trial. Andy, 150 million people watched the verdict of
Yeah.
this. 150 million people, and it wasn't like it was on tape delay or what. This was crazy. I mean, it was a circus. You mentioned Cato Kalin, the housemaid. There was the all the spoofs that were spun off on it. The Seinfeld episodes with the lawyer there, and
Yeah.
for Kramer. just so crazy. But yeah, but OJ Simpson, like what a miserable life to lead after. Yeah, I think everyone does agree that um he was a murderer, and that's what happened. But yeah, that's it's crazy how that all works out. So it's, I don't want to say it was sad to see, but it was notable yesterday in the news.
Yeah.
Uh, so, um, all
Yeah,
right,
I
Andy.
still think my favorite, my strongest OJ memory, everything else aside, football and everything else aside, because he was a fantastic football player back in his day. But I still think Adam Sandler wins for during the Hanukkah song when he's listing off, various famous Jews, and he gets to the line where he's like, OJ Simpson, not a Jew, and I still crack up at the way he sort of he wanted to take a moment to point and hey, this guy not affiliated, not affiliated, and I still crack up about that. So Adam Sandler wins.
Is it bad that I can go then? But you know who is Hall of Famer Rod Carew?
That's right. That's right. That's right. If you haven't listened to the Adam Sandler Hanukkah song, listen to it. It doesn't have to only be around Hanukkah. A great, great song. Starting with David Lee Roth. Starting with David Lee Roth.
We've talked about the Adam Sandler comedy, like if you appreciate his movies, yeah, that's great. But his CDs or
Oh my
his
gosh.
albums for that were amazing. And I mean, we have that one favorite one, of course, Andy,
Yeah.
that you introduced me to, and I've never gone back from there at all. So Andy, another story in the news yesterday was something we talked about a couple weeks ago with Shohei Ohtani, the Los Angeles Dodgers outfielder slash pitcher slash just all around amazing athlete. A couple weeks back, I guess during spring training, I don't know if it was exactly the end of spring training or whatnot, but it came out that actually it was the start of the baseball season because they kicked off in South Korea. It came out that Shohei Ohtani's interpreter was fired kind of quickly around some betting allegations, and apparently that it was about $4 million that this individual was alleged to have stolen from Shohei Ohtani, and you like how does somebody who there's a lot of questions. One, if you're making 100, $200,000 a year, how do you get a line of betting credit of $4 million? How does somebody keep giving you time and time again an extension so that you can dig into $4 million in debt when you are only worth or getting a salary of $200,000 a year or whatever this interpreter was making? And so there was some connection. There was a belief that Shohei Ohtani had to have been involved. The interpreter must have been making bets for Ohtani, yada yada yada, and it was going on and on. And it was a lot of quiet. There was a lot of no statements from Ohtani. But then he finally came out and said, "Yes, this person was stealing from me. They were stealing from me." And again, $4 million. I mean, to me, if I lost, $500 in my
Yeah.
account, I would know, yet alone $4 million. But Otani signed a contract worth $700 million. He makes a lot of money in endorsements. He probably doesn't manage his own monies. A lot of this is managed for him. So you can see how that could play out, I suppose. But it wasn't $4 million, and it was $16 million. It came out yesterday. The Department of Justice and the IRS came out and said it's $16 million, and they have this really long affidavit detailing all the allegations.
Yeah.
It gives you a really seedy view. If you haven't seen the affidavit, I encourage you to look at it. It just gives you a very seedy view into how the betting, how this cycle can spiral for people who are addicted to betting, and who, like, in a span of 3 days, he went back to the book. The interpreter went back to the booker, three times and said, "Hey, give me an extension one more time, just one more time. I'm going to do it this time. I'm a terrible bettor, but I'm going to change my ways today." On successive days, and it's just really amazing to see how you can get into this, you know, how you can get into this world. But I don't know, Andy, if you had any chance to look at it. Any thoughts on the Shohei Ohtani stuff?
Well, I mean, it is a crazy story, and I think I mean, one, it's a sad story, really, the violation of trust, right? I mean, these guys
Yeah.
have known each other for a long time. It was a trusted, friend, and so, sometimes you don't see things where you don't even think to look, right? So I think the suspicion just wasn't there, and so it's really sad to see this kind of betrayal. There's probably a whole lot of things that went into that even starting, but that's unfortunate. And then also, on the bookmakers end, like it doesn't add up, right? Like again, you made the point that you know what a guy's rough salary is. You have an idea of what he's not making. Like the bets didn't add up, and the fact that those continued the way they did. Like I don't know if there's a legal part of that, but there's certainly a moral part of like how much money do you take, how much you let a guy go into debt, and then continue to feed the problem. There's sort of a personal, just like, am I a scumbag just making money here, or part to it. So it's a sad story. I mean, at the end of the day, when you sign a contract that big, this guy's not going to be hurting at all, right? He's got a long, bright future ahead of him. He's fine, but it is a sad story of betrayal and some unethical behavior on multiple people's end. It's just sad to see, and unfortunately, when people enter the limelight, whether they win the lottery or they are the number one draft pick, a lot of people suddenly become their best friends. A lot of people want to take advantage of them, and when those same people get into trouble, all those friends disappear real quickly, and it's just a sad reminder of that. So I hope for all these guys getting ready to come out into the NFL draft, they're about to become multimillionaires. I hope they're staying close to those they can trust, and can draw a lesson from this, because there's a lot of people that'll take advantage of you in your situation that you know aren't in it for you. And I hope that doesn't happen to see these other young superstars.
Yeah, very, yeah, very interesting situation. Um, I would encourage anybody listening to check out the affidavit. They put a lot of details in there. It's a lot of individual, you know, sad states for some individuals. And again, it shows you, like, yeah, as much as there's the opportunity to engage in that type of activity legally, it can get spiral pretty quick. But just like any other vice, it can be addictive in a lot of ways, and you keep chasing some of that work. But yeah, I encourage everybody to read through that, Andy. So, Andy, a lot of other like odds and ends throughout the week here. I'm trying to hard as I scroll through and determine where to go to next. I mean, we have some of the political stuff going on right now. There's
Yeah.
reports yesterday that came out that the Trump camp is not happy with Marjorie Taylor Greene, the firebrand from Georgia, and just kind of want her to shut up and stop causing all this distraction, especially since, again, she's rallying or trying to rally the group against the speaker, which we talked about a little while ago as well. Um, Basically, just saying, "Hey, look, stop being a distraction. Trump doesn't want you to be a distraction." But I don't know how much truth there is to that or not. There's also a lot of discussion about the FISA, the Federal Surveillance Act, that is up for renewal or up for a vote for renewal. This came into prominence uh, after 9/11, of course, when talking about wiretapping Americans and wanting protections for Americans in that process.
Yeah.
I think, like much like what happened after 9/11, a lot of blank checks were written and a lot of leeway was given, and perhaps protections of American citizens' rights were not so much considered at that point in time. And so now there's this discussion about that. So I'm not sure, Andy. Where and then there's some other stuff about AI and stuff. Anywhere you want to get into, Andy?
Well, I think 702 is an interesting one, Dave, and the AI ones are interesting as well. Certainly, I think on 702, right? So the FISA bill, this has been around for a while, and listen, I truly value and respect the people of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the work they do every day. Like I genuinely appreciate them, but there are a couple points where I strongly disagree. And Director Ray's been out, talking about a few things, and when he's on a campaign, he hammers those points home. He did this with encryption, which I disagree with the FBI about, and on 702. And listen, this is something, Dave, where I was, whether it's the FBI or it's public health officials during COVID, I give people the benefit of the doubt, right? And these are, what I call, they're the defenders. Their job is to keep us safe, right? And it becomes almost obsessive that mission success is zero failure, which is the way it should be. Like there can't be a terrorist event, right? That's a failure. So they have to look at it in the most extreme measure of how can we keep Americans safe. And if there's somewhat of a compromise on civil rights, civil liberties, sometimes it's seen as like it's not really a big deal. But I think Americans have a responsibility to push back on that and to assume a certain level of risk and responsibility. And when it comes to FISA and 702, one can say, and again, I give people the benefit of the doubt, passed after a national tragedy. People wanted to keep Americans safe. A not well thought out authorization was given, and it's been abused. And we know it's been abused. There's documentation. That's a whole separate discussion. But basically comes down to the fact that there has to be a process to keep Americans' privacy safe. You can't give the federal government or anybody like unfettered access to Americans' private goings on because of suspicions of potential wrongdoing. There's a process to do that. And that process, as Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky said, is you get a warrant. And I know the FBI hates that argument and it doesn't, it doesn't work for them. It's not efficient, but it has to be that way. And so I've always sort of pushed back on this, and I understand and appreciate the FBI's want to keep Americans safe and the benefits to them of the FISA legislation. But in this point, I agree with the smaller group of folks. I think they're pushing back on it, saying, "Hey, look, you can't do this. Like we have to protect Americans' rights. You've got to respect the Bill of Rights. You've got to respect the Constitution. If you need to investigate somebody, there's a process to do it. Follow that process. Let's do it right." And I have to agree with that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think there's been a lot of abuse of this authority, and again, it just goes back to when we did this. Obviously, there was a need to want to extend and expand some of our capabilities, but at the same time, it has to come with protection of American civil liberties and rights. And we have a process for when you have reasonable, you know, reasonable information to believe somebody is potentially engaged in wrongdoing. There's a process to do this. It's getting a warrant, right? You have to do it with other things too. This should be no different, especially today when technology, where we have so much at our fingertips. I mean, we should there should be an expectation of privacy um, that can't be violated just because somebody heard like hearsay. And I think that's where we got to so much after 9/11 and some of those other years. And I think we're at a point now where we do have to make sure that we are protecting those rights. So I definitely agree, Andy. It'll be an interesting thing. I do feel it was on social media. You hear it a lot of like Trump is claiming victory for delaying this or postponing this or again we get into the politicalization of it and trying to get notches on the belt just so that we can, as we go into election season. I think this is really a challenging time on a lot of this stuff. So very interesting discussion. Anything else more on that, Andy?
I'll just say that this, like so many things, I think people are sometimes falling into camps of, do I agree in this case, with former President Trump, or am I just going to be knee jerk opposed to him because he's leaning into slowing down on reauthorizing FISA? A lot of people are sort of jumping on like, oh, that's insane. I've got to support this. That's not the way to make an opinion, right? I mean, Donald Trump can be right about some things. Joe Biden can be right about some things. And I encourage folks just thoughtfully listen to opposing views and sides and take those into consideration. Put the man, the jerk, the orange people, whatever it is, aside and separate it from the issues being discussed. And I agree with the president, with the former president on this one, that hey, at least just slow down. There are other proposals, and just like this is really a big deal, and you really need to protect the Constitution of the United States and our rights as Americans. It's important. So in this case, I have to agree. I think Donald Trump's in the right here to at least say, hey, let's slow down and think through this. So I'll leave it there, Dave. I'll leave it there. But we can share. I'll share a link when we post this later. I'll share a good link. I think that kind of summarizes where things are pretty well.
Yeah, very good, very good. Andy, I don't know if this is really much of a news story. I think we had some battling Chiefs this week. Not the football team Chiefs, but like the head of Meta, the AI chief there,
Yeah.
and Elon Musk, uh, going back and forth, not necessarily directly at one another, but saying, Meta's AI chief was saying that AI will never reach human level intelligence, whereas Elon Musk is saying if all things are considered and we don't have any shortages of technology or shortages of chips or anything like that, AI will be smarter than a human at the end of the year. This is a fascinating area because I love the power of AI. I love the power of what for you. There's so much productivity and efficiency that can be done, and I don't necessarily ascribe to the belief that it's cost people jobs. Of course, every time you become more efficient, their jobs can be impacted, but other jobs get created in that whole process, Andy. I think that's always get overlooked. But and there is the risk for as much as good as it does bring a lot of risk from threat actors or individuals who are looking to scam people. I mean, we already see a rise in phishing incidents based on AI,
Yeah.
some other things, mostly making things better for threat actors to scam people over. Um, they create efficiencies for bad guys too, I guess, Andy. So, where do you sit on the AI front? Where are you on that?
So, I mean, so I think there's a few thoughts here, right? So, on Elon Musk comments that AI will be smarter than any human next year. One, I think that's absurd. Right? I think it's absurd. I think it doesn't make sense. But he qualified it so much that there's a million ways to explain it away and be like, well, it would have worked if there was more chips, more power, more. Yeah. So it's a nonsense statement. And I think I agree with the statement made by Meta's AI chief is, I think, more accurate, and we can talk through sort of his four qualifications. But I think it was really well summarized by Meta's lead at Instagram and at Threads. Adam Mosseri, he kind of summarized in a thread back on the 4th. I just pulled it up here, look at it. And he says, you know, we both look at it as it's wildly exciting, wildly optimistic, and he says sort of the way that he balances the skepticism and optimism of AI. And this, I'm going to quote here: "One way I square this circle is accepting that we all tend to overestimate what can happen in the short term and underestimate what can be accomplished in the long run." I think that's a good way to look at it. Like near term, this isn't Skynet, right? I've been looking at AI a lot, the last year. It can do some things really well, but it doesn't actually think, right? There's no analytical capability there to think these things. It can present data in a variety of very convenient ways. And so I think near term there are definitely limitations, and there's a lot of stuff being sold that's garbage out there right now. But in the long term, like it can evolve into something that can really help in a number of incredible ways across science and technology, medicine, the classroom. So there's great potential. I think Elon Musk makes a lot of waste comments, Dave, wild ass statements, theories, and exaggerations. He's known for it, and this falls into that. I think it's definitely an exaggeration of where it is and where it's going to be. Yes, technology evolves rapidly, but no, it's not going to evolve to surpass humanity next year. But the potential for great things out of AI and dangerous things out of AI is definitely there. And so we're seeing a mad scramble of governments and technologists trying to figure out how do we both introduce and take advantage of AI technology and manage it in a safe and responsible manner. That's going to be a debate over the next, 2, 3, 5, 10 years, and who knows how long. But I think Elon Musk, who's, you know, throws those waste comments around, is definitely off in what he said. But again, qualified it so much that it's a nothing statement.
Yeah, I refuse to believe Elon Musk making any waste statements, Andy. He's doing everything. So, Andy, a lot of other things to go into. I just don't know if it's worth our time to get into it. Andy, Speaker Johnson is going down to Mar-a-Lago
Yeah.
today, to, I guess, get the former president's endorsement or support. So that'll be interesting. I talked a little bit about how the former president is unhappy with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and so therefore maybe this will put her back in the corner if her idol Trump is supporting the person she's trying to oust. So that'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see. It'll also, Andy, up on my feed, I got a Patriot Pause posting of Trump. You can buy a Trump teddy bear with him and his yellow hair, sunglasses, and a leather jacket. So we always got that. But Andy, I guess I'll just put all that to the side. You got any big weekend plans? I mean, what's
Dave, I think I've got a chores weekend here. We've had some good rains. I'm gonna be mowing the lawn. Pretty excited about that. We're doing some other various exciting things like that around the house. So nothing major on the radar for the weekend. I think gonna just try and enjoy the fact that the weekend keeps coming around, and I'm still here to enjoy them. So I'm looking forward to. We're in mid-April, Dave, which kind of scares me because this year's going by mighty fast. But I'm looking forward to getting into the weekend and to not hopefully thinking about politics too much. And I'm gonna try and disconnect from some of those thoughts. Although I will just say quickly, Dave, I will say there's talk about Quebec trying to secede from Canada, which comes up every few years. And I'm
yeah?
all for Quebec joining these United States. I just want to put it out there to our Quebecer friends. Come join the union. Come on. We'll give you a football team. We'll bring you in. Come on in. Bring your French. Bring your fun. Come on in. Come on
Do
in.
they want the United? I see this story pop up. You're right. It comes up every 5 or 6 years or something.
Yeah.
Do they want to join the United States, or what do they want to do?
Some do. Some want to be clear and independent. Some
Yeah,
have petitioned to join the U.S. I think it's mixed. I think stage one is secession from Canada. And I'm just saying I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying hey, we should open that door, right? I mean, I welcome our northern friends. Come on in, Quebec. Come on in, Puerto Rico. Come join the union. Come be states. Come. There's the more the merrier, Dave. Let's spread democracy and love, with more states.
I enjoy those stories where like you see Texas every so often. It's like, hey, should we break away as well? But I like some of the other intrastate or interstate type of things. Have you seen those stories? And again, I haven't seen it probably in the last 6 or 7 months or something, but about like Oregon, like Eastern Oregon wants to
Yeah,
join Idaho,
yeah.
because they feel like the politics of Portland dominate the state, and they don't really believe what the rest of. I think this is what happens when you have a big city, big metropolitan
Yeah.
city that really has is different than the rest of the. You see that all the time. I love those red and blue maps where you see the clusters of who voted where, just to show you like how really crazy some of the voting blocks are. So I
Yep.
love that. Well, I'm interested. I'd love to see Oregon split and go to Idaho. It'd be
Yeah,
kind of
in California, I mean, there's been very real. So I'll tell you, I think it's nonsense for states to want to break away from the union, but I'm all for breaking up the states. Like, again, that's a whole separate discussion. But I'm an advocate for breaking up all the states into smaller units. It goes back to our founding, to representation, to George Washington's only time weighing in at the Constitutional Convention was on the issue of representation. And we are so far away from that I think it really hurts democracy today. It would be chaotic, but I am all in on states breaking up into smaller units. Even my beautiful Commonwealth of Virginia, I would support the breaking up of Virginia to smaller units. So again, another discussion for another day, Dave. I know that's all you're intending to go in these last few minutes, but come on in, Quebec, break up the states. Chaos abounds. I'm all for it.
all right, Andy. That's probably a good way to go into the weekend with. On that note, it was a tech challenged Friday. Uh, I Andy, I apologize for not. I was off kilter today, so that tech. So if I only had AI to fix it all. So. All right, Andy. With that, I wish you have a good weekend doing your chores. We'll be going up to see my son for his birthday. This will be one of the last times I guess we can probably do birthday visits, but we're going to do that. We have some guests coming in town as well, so it'll be a fun weekend, Andy, and we'll catch up with you next time.